Hello, everybody. This is the Somewhere on Earth podcast for Tuesday, the 31st of December, the last of 2024. We're here in London at the All Is Joy Studios. We love coming here. We're right here in central London in Soho, and it's very fabulous. And joining me today is the excellent Ania. And wow, 2024, that flew by, didn't it? What a year.
It was, wasn't it, Gareth? I mean, we had our first foreign trip. So Angelica and I going to the Web Summit in Lisbon. We've had some specials too. So going back to Duchesne UK, White and Case, and of course an extended programme with Jimmy Wales.
Oh yeah, White and Case. That was the one at the legal firm, wasn't it?
It was.
So
all very
we talked
posh.
about vertical farming and all that.
Yeah, you did.
Yes, and very posh as well, we should say. Yeah, it's been a great year and lots to look back on, and we did a lot about VPNs this year as well, and
elections,
of course, the year of elections and internet outages. So I'd say, I mean, as if you could call an internet outage a highlight, but a highlight of the programme, being able to report on that kind of thing. And yeah, that Braille pen as well, I remember as well from
you like that one. You like the
I
Braille.
did like that. Obviously, it's
pen.
brilliant what it was doing, and a really good bit of technology as well, just in an engineering context. So we could go on, and we will. So let's do it. And coming up today, you have spoken, we have listened. Yes, we asked you for your favourite and most memorable items from this podcast in 2024. So some of your standout moments include a whole new way of storing and processing data, and some very small batteries. And there's much, much more. So will your suggestion get into this Best of 2024 show? Stay tuned. Yes, this is the Somewhere on Earth podcast. First up then, listener Sabine van der Linden, thank you very much Sabine, on LinkedIn, says, or suggests the Wikipedia discussion with Jimmy Wales. And Sabine says it offered valuable insights into digital knowledge democratization. And we think that's a good call. And we had a feeling that our interview with the Wikipedia co-founder would get picked. So we'll give you a quick playback of some of that interview. And the chat began by discussing one of Jimmy Wales's latest ventures, the community-moderated platform Trust Cafe.
Trust Cafe is pilot project at trustcafe.io. And the idea is to take everything I've learned from the world of Wikipedia and of fandom and think about how to reimagine what a social network could be like with a model where the community is actually in control. So the idea is the most trusted members of the community have the ability to rate things up and down, but it isn't based on sheer numbers. It's based on being trusted in the community. And the idea is that the algorithms will promote content from trusted members rather than just whoever gets the most eyeballs and most attention. The idea is to say, look, in most social networks, there's a real incentive to make inflammatory comments, to get into big, huge debates, because that's what gets you attention. Let's change the algorithm so that there's an incentive to post thoughtful, intriguing replies and comments. So it's still, it's a little pilot project. We've got 2 developers, and we're constantly tweaking the software and improving and learning and thinking and talking to our community. But hopefully in a few years' time, it'll turn into something really interesting. In the meantime, I'm enjoying it, so that's all that really matters.
That's important. How do people gain trust then?
Well, it's pretty old-fashioned, really. In our community, it starts in a top-down way, sort of algorithmically. I see people in the community who I think are smart and kind and boost their trust rating, and they can boost other people's trust rating. And the way you get trust from other people is it's very human. It's post things that are sensible, don't pick fights for no reason, don't quote low-quality sources, things like that. Everybody understands this concept. It's just that social media has traditionally ignored the whole concept, and they optimize for engagement and time on site and number of ad views and so forth. So it's a different approach that I hope leads to a different result.
And Glenn, you've been dipping in, haven't you?
I have, yes. Literally just this last week. But very interested. And I was very interested to see, and it was just engaged in how I conceive as various elements of it that you've chosen from different places, different things, put into one platform. And that one platform it's nice to have those all together in one place, yeah. So I will be playing into it. But what I'm very interested in is actually looking at this kind of emergence of networks, which, obviously has been in the pipeline virtually for many years now, since the early 90s, late 80s. And I was wondering what you can see out there in terms of those emergent dynamic networks and ecosystems that you've been involved in so long, knowledge sharing communities, which have participation, which have collaborative participation in them. So is the Trust Cafe really like a culmination of your experience on that to try and get us to this next level?
One of the things I've always believed is what I call community design, which is a combination of sort of rules in the community, but also the software that supports those rules. So one of the reasons that Wikipedia works as well as it does is the actual design of the software, the ability if somebody comes in and does something harmful, anyone can go in and revert it. And then the community elects administrators. So now we're back to rules and so forth, and they can block people and so on. And so it's a whole complicated system that has evolved over time to sort of achieve a certain objective. And, my belief with Trust Cafe is that we can take that kind of idea of say, let's design the software and the rules, and at every moment think about quality. Think about how are we going to promote quality discourse, how are we going to promote interesting people. And, you can't completely ignore some of the traditional metrics. So if you say, oh, well, we don't care anything about engagement, well, people have to like the site, right? So if people come back and use the site again and again, that tells you something positive or something negative sometimes if it's just like super addictive like TikTok maybe. But you want to also think about that and say, oh, I created the perfect social network. No one ever gets in a fight because no one ever uses it. And there's no toxic content because nobody's posting anything. So you've got to think about popularity. But really, how do you get there and also take into account community control and thoughtfulness and kindness and building out a space that people are like, you know what, this is a home. I like to be here. I felt bad about myself when I was on Instagram. I feel good about myself when I've been here for a year. I've met interesting people and I've learned new things, and that's good.
Yeah, a place to go where you're going to feel good. A bit like Somewhere on Earth, we like to say. That was Jimmy Wales, of course, talking to Ghislaine and me earlier in the year, in February, actually. Well, now, let's hear from listener Stefano via WhatsApp.
Good morning, Somewhere on Earth, the Global Tech Podcast. It's Stefano Ghazali here, one of your favourite long-time listeners. And I don't very often do these WhatsApp things, but seeing as you put it out on last week's show, some of the interviews that really stood out for me are as follows, and not really in any order of preference. The Jimmy Wales interview was amazing. The French language chatbots was amazing, and the one about Wikidata being more human readable. And of course, all the bits about OpenAI and the drama that was going on there through this year. Having keen interests in ASR, TTS, MT and LLMs, and the whole world of generative AI, those are the topics that I have the most interest in. But really, everything on your show is fantastic, and it opens up loads of different avenues for possible research. So please keep them coming, and I look forward to another year of SOEP. Bye for now.
Oh, thanks, Stefano. That really means a lot. We will keep those programmes coming. Some great suggestions there too. So we've had that bit of Jimmy Wales, so we've managed to grant your wish there, Stefano. And Stefano also mentioned the unreliable French language chatbot issue. In fact, that item also had the most downloads since we joined the Evergreen platform. So it definitely qualifies for this Best of 2024 edition. So let's have a little recap. Now, French is one of the fastest growing languages in the world. It's the official language in 27 countries. But French language AI chatbots, well, they're kind of not doing very well. They give the wrong answer a quarter of the time. And that's a problem given the rising popularity of such bots and, of course, the prominence of the French language. Ania spoke to China Labe of the anti-misinformation news organisation NewsGuard.
Basically, what we found is that the chatbots in French language fail to provide accurate information in about a quarter of the time, in 25 approximately % of the time. What does that mean? That means that they either provide misinformation, so they will repeat a false narrative with authority, or they will basically not respond to the question and fail to provide any kind of information. We decided to describe as fail rate non-response plus misinformation. Why? Because we think that when a chatbot is not providing information at all, if it's saying, well, I can't respond to that question because of my, my knowledge cutoff, or, well, I can't address that because I'm not allowed to talk about politics, that doesn't really help you, does it? And actually, it can really contribute to the problem, because if a user wants to search for an information about a very sensitive topic and is just told that, well, the chatbot can't help him with that, that really won't solve the problem at all. So that's what we found. Now, 25% of the time is a lot. In terms of misinformation per se, the 10 leading chatbots repeated misinformation 13% of the time. I think some people might consider that that's not a lot, but basically take the analogy of a box of aspirins. You wouldn't want 13 out of 100 pills to be poisoned, would you? So we think it's a lot, and that shows that there is a big problem, especially because what we try to show with these monitors is that, well, of course, it's not to show that any user will find misinformation when they use the chatbots, but it is to show that they are easy to weaponize. And what is worrying in that report, specifically in French, but actually we're seeing the same trend in English, so we'll have to see if it's the same in other languages. But basically, what we find is that chatbots are particularly vulnerable to spreading misinformation when they're asked basically to produce misinformation. So we're putting ourselves in the shoes of a misinformation provider. Imagine a propagandist of the Kremlin, or a propagandist of any foreign country that you might think of.
You mentioned the figure 25% of the time there's misinformation of some sort, either by lack of it or something that's being repeated that's fundamentally wrong. But some chatbots were really bad, weren't they? What was the worst case you found?
So the worst performing chatbot in French had a fail rate of 66%,
wow,
which is huge. And when it comes to just repeating false information, so spreading a false claim, one of the chatbots did it 40% of the time. So I think if we're looking, yes, at the overall number, 25% of fail rate and 13% repeating misinformation, some people might, brush it aside and say, well, that's not that huge of a problem. First, I think that's wrong because, if you take the drug analogy, you don't want chatbots to contribute to our misinformation problem, which is already huge. But then some of those chatbots are doing worse than others. And I think what we should realize is that it is possible to put guardrails. It is possible to do better. First, because we're seeing inconsistencies between the chatbots. We're seeing inconsistencies between languages. So some are doing better in French than in English. And why is that? We don't really know. Probably have they put more guardrails? We don't really know.
That was Ania Lichtarowicz talking to Ania. And has that story progressed then since we ran that?
Well, at the moment, NewsGuard hopes to do another survey of French language chatbots in February, because they've got a big AI conference coming up in France. And also, not yet at the moment, but the plans are to do other languages too.
All right. Thank you, Ania. I think it's only fair, as you being the producer, you can have producer's prerogative here. Do you have a favourite from the year just gone?
It took a while, but I think it's the DNA storage and compute engine that we did.
Oh, you got right into that, didn't you?
Were
you saying this is like the most important bit of science this year? And
I was really amazed by it. Probably because I actually managed to read the paper from page 1 to 17. I can't remember how many there were. It felt like that. It was hard going, but I think I got there in the end. Spoke to 2 lovely researchers who did all of this. And yeah, I think it was just amazing. This whole concept that we move from a binary system and we just use the letters on the base pairs of DNA instead to store the data. It's a pachoo.
Why stick with binary when you can have quaternary?
Indeed. Indeed.
That could be the slogan. Okay.
So DNA is a natural information store, isn't it? So, we can actually use it to store other data, not only our genetic instructions. So just to remind you, if you stretch the DNA in one cell of your body all the way out, it would be about 2 meters long. And all the DNA in your cells put together would be about twice the diameter of the solar system. Right?
Wow.
So, therefore, there has to be some clever packaging. So, to get these 2+ meters into a single cell, the DNA coils and it folds and it coils and it folds and it coils and it folds times whatever it's on itself, and then wraps itself around protein balls. These are called histones. And so, again, it's compacted once more. This new structure is called chromatin. A piece of DNA that is 1 meter long becomes a string of beads of chromatin that is now just 14 centimeters long. So you've already had a real compression there, but that is still not big enough to put inside your cell. So even more folding and coiling happens until eventually the chromosomes that people probably recognize are formed, and we have 23 pairs in each of our cells. So that's the basis of it. They think they can probably store all the world's DNA on just a few all the world's data on just a few cubic centimeters of DNA, because it just folds and folds and folds and folds. Now, there are complex ways of reading the data. It'll uncoil in part. Enzymes are formed through transcription and translation processes, and this can all be stored with non-DNA data as well. So you just have to unravel the little bit you'd want.
Oh,
And then ravel it back up.
I see. So read off what you want, scrunch it back up again.
Exactly. You could put 1,000 laptops worth of data into DNA-based storage. That's the same size of a pencil eraser.
This is doing my head in.
It's the whole thing is just like, I was checking these facts again and again and going back to my notes. And anyway, so the researchers, what they've done is they've demonstrated that the new data storage and computing technology, they're calling it primordial DNA store and compute engine. It's capable of solving simple Sudoku and chess problems.
Well, can we hear a little clip then?
We have got a
one
little
of the
clip.
researchers involved. We have a clip. Albert Kyung is one of the researchers. This is what he told us.
So DNA is ACTs and Gs, and I like to, tell my students that the human genome is 3 billion ACTs and Gs, and if you convert the ACT and G into zeros and ones, so for example, A is a 00 and a T could be a 01, then you can essentially think about convert your genome into an amount of digital information, and that equals about 1 gigabyte. So the human genome is about a gigabyte of data, about like a CD-ROM or a DVD. And why we're really interested in DNA as a information substrate or storage material, computational material, is because that 1 gigabyte is just one of the 10 trillion cells or so in your body. And so if you take 1 gigabyte multiplied by the 10 trillion cells in your body, that means that you're literally walking around with more than all of the world's information in just the volume of your human body.
So, in other words, it's promising, but I think still years, maybe even a decade or more away, before it actually becomes a mainstream technology.
Absolutely, but it could be a complete shift in the way we store our data.
And we told you all about it in 2024, dear listener. Now, we've also heard from Adam Collings, one of our listeners, and he's on Facebook and says, my favourite episodes were tiny batteries for tiny robots, as mentioned by Gareth. And I also, says Adam, liked Eli Crossley and the Duchenne UK item. So brilliant suggestions, Adam. And seeing as we like both of them, we'll let you have both. So let's talk about those tiny batteries first. Now, we're not talking about those little watch batteries here. We're talking about stuff way, way smaller. In fact, these little batteries can be put into machines anyway, that move around the cells within our body. Yes, that's small. This work comes from Michael Strano and colleagues at MIT. And they've devised a battery, I said it was small, the width of a human hair.
Well, the goal is to bring sensors and electronics and motion to regions that are not accessible now. So imagine if you wanted to detect or do surgery inside the human body, or inside of a pipeline or piping system. Think about all of the applications where you'd like to get tools inside of a small space. So that's the goal of this area called micro robotics.
Because the way I often think about these kinds of very small robots is that they take energy from the environment. They're so small that they can, for instance, just take a little bit of heat energy or something like that, and that'll be enough to power them. So why are you going to the trouble of developing a whole, I nearly said whole big battery, but a whole battery?
It's a misconception that you can make a robot very small and just take power the same way you can with a children's toy. There's a threshold or a limit below which energy becomes very, very punishing. So meaning that there's just not enough energy to do the types of things that you want. This is not intuitive. You really have to do the math. But when a robot gets around the size of the thickness of your hair and smaller, engineers like myself, we find there's not enough energy to do anything. I mean, all of a sudden, imagine an electric car that can only have 5% of its charge, or a gasoline engine that only has maybe 100 milliliters. You have to start to think about what can you do with a very small amount of energy. So that has limited what engineers like myself can do. It's the opposite of what you think. If you have a children's toy, you take for granted you can plug it in. There's a rechargeable battery. There's plenty of energy to do what you want. Below a certain size, the opposite is true. You never have enough energy, and that falls right out of the math.
I love that phrase, that falls right out of the math, because I remember a while back, maybe it was even right back in 2023, soon after we had launched this podcast, we talked about quantum computing. And I'd always been excited by, but a bit skeptical about quantum computing. And I've made, a bit like you, really sat down and you read that research paper about the DNA storage. And with quantum computing, I did my best to understand some of the maths behind it. Now, I didn't get anywhere near like the really, really, really heavy maths, but I read enough and followed through enough of the maths to realise that quantum computing is an engineering challenge. You know, it's the maths shows you can do it. It's from here on in, it's an engineering challenge, and one they're increasingly combating and succeeding with. So I feel a bit like that with these tiny machine robots, these tiny little batteries. So hearing that phrase from Michael saying, yeah, it's still a way off, but the maths says we can do it. I'm with you on that. Good one, Michael. Now, listener Adam, of course, as we heard, he also wants to hear that Eli Crosley item again. Now, Eli, to remind you, he's 17 years old, and he has a condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, or DMD. And in July, we heard about the amazing assistive technology that helps Eli, or is in development to help him, including a so-called smart suit to restore function to the arms and other parts of the body. Well, we heard about that, and we also found out that Eli is very talented.
So I'm a singer, and I play electric ukulele, which is basically a small guitar, 4 strings. And obviously, like currently, in terms of playing the ukulele, I'm still able to do that. However, with the microphone, I can never really pick up the microphone out of its stand because I don't have that upper arm function. So having this smart suit will really help with that kind of side of being the front man. And I think that in terms of playing an instrument, I can do it right now. But if that ever, say, deteriorates, I know I've got something there that can help me. Help me hold the mic, help me down the line play my instrument and do what I love, which is music.
And you have a new song out, don't you?
Yeah, so me and my band Ask You, we just released a song, and here it is.
You have the world at your fingers, but you threw it all away. The trust we put in you, you let it go to waste. Power is a weapon, it can show us who you are. When you take the things that matter and leave us with a scar, by exposing your weakness and what you put others through. I got 2 words to say to you. So be honest and take the dropping seat. You can't be the hero, set us free.
you go. That's a little bit of Will's song from the band Askew. And an excellent song it is. And I tell you what, I recommend the Askew track Bellamore too. It's on Spotify. I've been listening to it just in the last few days. So there we are. The band are Askew. Quick reminder there. And let's in fact have a little bit more from that item with Eli Crosley, because we also spoke to his mother, Emily Rubin. She's founded a charity to work on technology to help improve Eli's life and the lives of others who have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The charity's now been going for over a decade.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me 12 years ago that we would have achieved everything we have done, I wouldn't have believed you. But, you know, I suppose I have a really strong sense of justice and injustice. And I just felt as though, because Duchenne's a rare disease, it's often overlooked, and that just felt unjust to me. And in the technology space, you know, I just have a real rage inside me about the injustice of it. You know, we got the delivery of a new car last week, and it was nice. We enjoyed having the car. It didn't have wires sticking out of it. It didn't have nuts and bolts sticking out of it. It didn't have nails sticking out of it. But when you look at Eli's wheelchair, there are wires hanging off. There's a big nail that just stops short of his thigh. You know,
So it's really crude technology.
Yeah,
so that's
and
your
it makes
point
me
then.
angry.
Yeah, so the big technology companies, because obviously they have massive markets in the kind like making cars or games consoles or what have you, they're all beautifully, slickly designed. And I guess what you're saying is not everybody and not many technology companies, not enough of them, maybe not any of them, are really thinking about the kind of needs that we're up against here.
And if only they did, we could change the world.
It would make a real difference. Well, it was such a fascinating and at times moving discussion. And if you've not heard the whole thing, then do scroll back through our editions. All of the back catalogue is on somewhereonearth.co. And I'm doing a little happy dance as I say our back catalogue, because I think we can actually say that now, Anya. We've done sort of 69-ish editions or something.
We're proper back catalogue.
That's a back catalogue, I think.
Definitely.
Not quite the Beatles, but, you know, we're working on it. And in fact, we'll finish this section and indeed this 2024 playback edition with a final clip from Eli Crosley himself. He told us what it's like to live with a condition that will reduce his life expectancy.
I think also, obviously, like from my side, being told that you have a reduced life expectancy, all these things, possibly being told that some stuff is too late. I mean, yeah, I don't know how to describe it to people who don't feel this, but it's terrifying. Terrifying knowing that I won't be able to live as long as lots of people. However, I've really come to the realisation that the only thing I'm afraid of is not achieving what I want to do in my lifetime. And I want to leave this world knowing that I've done everything that I wanted to do and accomplished lots of things. And playing at Glastonbury already, playing at South by Southwest, already a lot's happened, and I just want to achieve everything I can. And who knows, I might die of a drug addiction when I'm 26, like your average rock star. But I just want to I want to get out there, I want to make music, I want to inspire people, I want to do all these things, and I want to, I'm not afraid of dying. I just want to do everything that I feel I need to complete in my life.
And he's certainly doing that. Amazing guy, Eli Crosley, speaking to us actually around this very table, because we recorded that section here at the All Is Joy studios in Soho in central London, which rather beautifully wraps up the programme. So there we are. I've given the production credit for the studio. And we have Eon doing sound for us today. Thanks very much, Eon. The producer, editor, and just about everything else, and guest today, Ania Lichtarowicz, a guest on your own podcast, Anya, is Ania Lichtarowicz, our production manager, sitting here around the table as well, which is jolly nice. Here's Liz Tuohy, and I'm Gareth Mitchell. Happy nearly new year, everybody, and we'll see you in 2025. Bye-bye.